Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that most people will never understand because most people aren't even willing to look at it. They're so caught up in what other people think, in what's expected of them, that they never stop to question whether they're even living their own life. Most people, they're on autopilot. They're so busy chasing the next promotion, the next relationship, the next thing that's supposed to make them happy, that they never stop and ask themselves, is this what I really want? They're stuck in a cycle of doing what's comfortable, what's familiar, even if it's killing them inside. And that's the truth that most people will never understand. You are not stuck because of your circumstances. You're stuck because of your mindset. You're stuck because you're scared to question the stories you're telling yourself. And let's be real, it's easier to blame everything else, right? The economy, your boss, your family, your partner. It's easier to say, well, this is just how things are, than it is to look in the mirror and admit that you're the one holding yourself back. Because when you do that, when you finally see that the biggest obstacle in your life is you, that's terrifying. But it's also the most liberating moment of your life. Because if you're the one holding yourself back, guess what? You're also the one who can set yourself free. Here's the deal. Most people will never understand that freedom isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you claim for yourself. It's not about waiting for permission or for the perfect moment. It's about deciding that you're done living in a cage built out of fear and doubt and other people's expectations. It's about realizing that your life, your one life, belongs to you, and you get to decide what you're going to do with it. I know that's scary. I know it's uncomfortable, but everything you want, it's on the other side of that discomfort. Most people will never understand that. They'll keep playing small. They'll keep trying to fit in. They'll keep pretending they're okay with a life that doesn't feel like theirs. But you're here because deep down, you know you're meant for more. You're here because you're tired of the excuses, the self-sabotage, the endless cycle of wanting and waiting and never doing. You're here because you're ready to stop living like most people and start living like the unstoppable force you truly are. Here's the truth that most people will never understand. You're never going to feel completely ready. You're never going to feel 100% confident. The fear, the doubt, the uncertainty, that doesn't go away. But you get to decide whether it's going to control you or whether you're going to act in spite of it. I want you to hear this loud and clear. It's not your circumstances that keep you stuck. It's your choices. It's the fact that you keep choosing comfort over growth, fear over possibility, other people's opinions over your own truth. And the moment you decide to stop making those choices, that's the moment your life changes. It's not easy. If it was, everyone would do it. Most people will never understand that real change isn't a moment, it's a daily decision. It's getting up every day and choosing to show up even when you're scared. It's choosing to speak up even when your voice shakes. It's choosing to go after what you want even when you don't know how it's going to work out. That's the truth. That's the real work. And most people, they'll never even try. But you're different. You're here because you're ready to claim your life, to take responsibility for your happiness, your purpose, your growth, to stop waiting for someone else to give you permission and start giving it to yourself. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to start questioning every story you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. I want you to stop settling for what's familiar and start demanding what's possible. I want you to stop living for other people and start living for yourself. Because here's the ultimate truth. You already have everything you need inside you. The courage, the strength, the resilience, it's all there. You just have to trust yourself enough to use it. Most people will never understand that. But you're not most people. Let's go. Let's be real. Most people are living on autopilot. They're stuck in routines that they never even chose, driven by expectations they didn't create, and held back by fears they don't even realize they have. They're moving through each day without stopping to question, is this the life I want? And that's the real tragedy, because if you're not questioning, you're not growing. You're just existing. Think about it. How many times have you caught yourself doing something simply because that's how it's always been done? How often have you let other people's opinions dictate your decisions, whether it's about your career?
Most people never see that for what it is. They never stop to ask, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why am I working a job I hate? Why am I chasing goals that don't even excite me? They just keep going, hoping that someday they'll stumble into the life they really want. But here's the truth. You don't stumble into the life you want. You create it, you build it, and that starts by turning off autopilot and taking back the controls. Let's talk about how to do that, because if you're reading this, you're already ahead of the curve. You're already willing to question, and that's huge. That's the first step, awareness. Most people never get there. They're too busy numbing out with social media, Netflix, whatever it takes to distract them from that little voice inside that says, this isn't it. Awareness is about catching yourself in the act of living someone else's life. It's about noticing the patterns that don't serve you, the constant need to please, the fear of failing, the habit of putting yourself last. It's about asking, is this choice truly mine? Because until you start questioning, you're just repeating, you're just reacting to life instead of creating it. But let's be real, awareness alone isn't enough. It's powerful, but it's just the start. The next step, ownership, taking radical responsibility for where you are right now. Most people don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. You are where you are because of the choices you've made. And that's not about blame, it's about power. Because if your choices created this life, your choices can also create a new one. Here's the thing, radical responsibility doesn't feel good at first. It's so much easier to blame your boss, your partner, the economy. But every time you blame something outside of you, you give away your power to change. You're saying, I can't do anything about this. And that's a lie. You always have a choice. Even if you can't control what's happening around you, you can control how you respond. You can control what you're going to do next. Let me ask you something. Where in your life are you on autopilot right now? Where are you just going through the motions without even realizing it? And more importantly, what would it look like to turn off autopilot in that area? What would it look like to say, I'm done doing this because it's what's expected. I'm done settling for what's familiar. I'm ready to take the wheel and create something that actually matters to me. Because here's what I know. The moment you wake up and decide you're done living by default, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop trying to be who everyone else wants you to be. And you start living like your life actually matters, because it does. But let's get one thing straight. Turning off autopilot isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. You have to remind yourself over and over that you're not here to fit in. You're here to stand out. You're not here to survive, you're here to thrive, and that means every day you have to choose to question, to challenge, to get uncomfortable, because comfort is the enemy of growth. I'll be honest with you, most people won't do this. Most people will stay on autopilot their whole lives. They'll complain about how nothing ever changes, but they won't do the work to change it. But you're not most people. You're here because you're ready to do the work. You're ready to own your life, to take back your power, to build something that excites you, something that's truly yours. So let me leave you with this. Every time you catch yourself slipping back into autopilot, pause. Take a breath and remind yourself you have a choice. You can choose to live by default, or you can choose to live by design. You can choose to keep doing what's safe and familiar, or you can choose to take a risk on the life you really want. You can choose to stay stuck, or you can choose to rise. It all starts with that choice. Most people will never make it, but you're not most people. Let's go. True transformation begins when you realize that your life is the result of your thoughts and choices, not your circumstances. Most people spend their lives blaming everything around them for why they're stuck: their job, their upbringing, their relationships. It's so much easier to point the finger outward than to look inward. But here's the truth. Everything in your life right now is a reflection of the choices you've made and the thoughts you've believed. That's not meant to make you feel guilty or ashamed. It's meant to wake you up to the fact that if you want to change your life, you have to change the way you think and act. We've been conditioned to believe that our circumstances define us, that where we come from, what we have or don't have, the people around us, these are the things that shape our destiny. But that's a lie. Circumstances are just the starting point, not the finish line. It's what you decide to do with those circumstances that determines who you become. You see people who have faced unbelievable challenges, people who have grown up in poverty, faced trauma, had every disadvantage possible, and they still rise. They still find a way to break through. And then there are people who have every opportunity handed to them, but they never do anything with it. Why? Because it's not about circumstances. It's about mindset and action. Let me be clear. I'm not saying your circumstances don't matter. They do. They can make things harder or easier, but they're not the final word. They're not a life sentence. They're a factor, not a fate. The real power comes from how you interpret those circumstances and what you choose to do next. Your thoughts are the foundation of everything. If you think you're not good enough, guess what? You'll act like you're not good enough. If you think nothing ever works out for you, you'll stop trying before you even start. Your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings drive your actions. So if you want to change your life, you have to start with your mind. You have to become aware of the stories you're telling yourself every single day about who you are, what you're capable of, and what's possible for you. Most people don't even realize how powerful their thoughts are. They think their mind is just this passive thing, reacting to whatever's happening around them. But your mind isn't passive. It's the most powerful tool you have. Every thought you choose to focus on shapes your life. If you keep telling yourself, I can't, or I'm not good enough, or it's too late for me, you're building a prison out of your own words. But if you start telling yourself, I can figure this out, or I'm stronger than I think, or I deserve more, you're building a bridge to the life you want. And here's the thing. Changing your thoughts isn't about just saying positive affirmations in the mirror. It's about challenging the beliefs that have been holding you back for years. It's about noticing the patterns that keep you stuck, like procrastination, people, pleasing, self-doubt, and asking yourself, what story am I believing right now that's keeping me here? It's about being honest with yourself and being willing to let go of the thoughts that no longer serve you. Once you start shifting your thoughts, you have to back them up with action. That's the other half of the equation. Because you can think all the positive thoughts you want, but if you don't act on them, nothing changes. Action is what turns possibility into reality. It's what separates the dreamers from the doers. Most people wait until they feel ready, but you're never going to feel 100% ready. You just have to start. You have to be willing to do the uncomfortable thing, to take the risk, to fail and try again. That's how you create a life that's bigger than your circumstances. Here's what I want you to understand. You don't have to be a prisoner of your past. You don't have to be defined by what's happened to you or what you didn't get. You are the only person who gets to decide what happens next. You are the only person who can choose to think differently, act differently, and create a different future. Most people will never realize that. They'll keep blaming and waiting and wishing. But you're not most people. You're here because you're ready to take ownership. You're here because you're ready to stop letting your circumstances define you. I want you to really sit with this. Your life is your responsibility. That might feel heavy, but it's also the most empowering thing you'll ever hear. Because if your life is your responsibility, that means you have the power to change it. You have the power to choose new thoughts, take new actions, and create a new reality. You don't need anyone else's permission. You don't need anyone else's approval. All you need is the courage to decide that your circumstances don't get to have the final say. You do. This isn't about ignoring the challenges you face. It's about refusing to let them stop you. It's about saying, "This is hard, but I'm going to do it anyway." It's about saying, "I don't know how yet, but I'm going to figure it out." It's about saying, "I deserve a life that lights me up, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it real." Most people will never understand that your thoughts and choices are the real foundation of your life. They'll keep waiting for the perfect conditions, but you know that transformation starts with a decision, and that decision is yours to make right here, right now. Most people are so busy worrying about what other people think of them that they never even stop to consider what they think of themselves. They are constantly scanning the room, measuring themselves up against everyone else, trying to figure out if they're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, and let me tell you, that's the fastest way to kill your dreams and your self-confidence. Because when you're living for someone else's approval, you're never really living at all. You're performing, you're editing yourself, you're shrinking to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. And that's not just exhausting, it's soul-destroying. The truth is, you can't build a meaningful life on the foundation of other people's opinions. You can't chase your dreams if you're constantly looking over your shoulder to make sure everyone else is on board. You can't be fully alive if you're always worried about what they'll say or what they'll think. But most people never realize this. They stay trapped in that pattern their entire lives. They spend so much time and energy trying to please everyone else that they never stop to ask, "What do I actually want?" Let's be real, this obsession with external validation isn't something we're born with. It's something we learn. From a young age, we're taught to look to the outside world to tell us if we're okay. We're taught to seek gold stars, likes, and applause. We're taught that our worth is something that comes from other people's opinions, not from within ourselves. And that's a lie. Your worth isn't up for debate. It doesn't depend on who likes you or who doesn't. It doesn't depend on whether you meet someone else's standards. It's inherent, it's yours, but you have to claim it. You have to decide that you're done giving other people the power to define who you are. When you stop caring so much about what other people think, you give yourself the freedom to actually live. You give yourself permission to take risks, to be messy, to try things that might not work out. You give yourself the chance to discover what you're really made of, not what someone else expects from you, but what's true for you, and that's where real confidence comes from. It doesn't come from getting a bunch of likes on Instagram. It comes from knowing deep in your bones that you're living a life that's authentic and true to you. Here's the thing, the people you're so worried about impressing, most of them are too busy worrying about themselves to really notice what you're doing. And even if they do notice, their opinions change like the weather. You could spend your whole life trying to win them over, and they'd still find something to criticize. So why bother? Why waste your precious time and energy on people who don't have to live with your choices? The only person who has to live with your life is you. So make choices that you can stand behind. Make choices that light you up, even if no one else understands them. Because the truth is, you're never going to make everyone happy. No matter how hard you try, someone's always going to have something to say. So you might as well stop trying to make them happy and start trying to make yourself proud. This isn't about being selfish. It's about being real. It's about understanding that your life is yours. You're the one who wakes up with your dreams in your heart. You're the one who lies awake at night thinking about what you really want. And you're the one who's going to have to live with the regrets if you spend your whole life trying to be what everyone else wants you to be. So let them think what they want, let them talk, let them judge. That's their business, not yours. When you decide to stop caring so much about what other people think, you unlock a level of freedom that most people never even taste. You start to show up as the real you, flaws and all. You start to take risks that make your heart race. You start to build a life that feels like yours, not like some performance for an audience that's never going to be satisfied anyway. And here's the beautiful thing: the moment you stop chasing external validation, you create space for real connection. Because when you're no longer trying to be what everyone else wants you to be, you start attracting the people who love you for who you really are. You start to find your tribe, the ones who see you, who get you, who support you not because you're perfect, but because you're real. I know it's scary to let go of other people's opinions. It feels like you're stepping into the unknown, like you're risking everything. But the real risk is in staying small. The real risk is in betraying yourself just to fit in. Because one day, you're going to look back on your life and you're not going to care about what they thought. You're going to care about whether you lived, whether you showed up for yourself, whether you were brave enough to be who you really are. So here's my challenge to you: let go of the need to be liked. Let go of the need to be understood. Let go of the need to fit in, and choose instead to be real. Choose to be bold. Choose to be you. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters. And that's the only thing that's ever going to bring you peace. It's easy to forget that the real battles we face are the ones inside our own minds. The world can be challenging, but the greatest struggle is always the one between who you are right now and who you're capable of becoming. Most people don't even realize how much they're holding themselves back. They think they're stuck because of their circumstances, their past, or what other people think. But the truth is, it's the inner critic, the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that you'll never make it, that it's too late, that's keeping you trapped. Here's what you have to understand: that voice isn't the truth. It's just a habit. It's a pattern of thinking that's been programmed into you over years of doubt, fear, and failure. And the only way to move beyond it is to recognize it for what it is and refuse to let it have the final word. Because if you don't challenge that voice, it will keep you small forever. It will keep you playing it safe. It will keep you from taking the risks that would change everything for you. That voice loves to remind you of every mistake you've ever made. It loves to point out every time you fell short or didn't measure up. It loves to keep you focused on your limitations instead of your possibilities. But here's the thing: you are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your failures. You are the person who has survived them all. You are the person who still has breath in your lungs and a heart that beats with potential. And that means you have the power to rewrite the story you've been telling yourself. When you start to separate yourself from that inner critic, you create space to hear another voice, the voice of your intuition, your courage, your dreams. That voice is always there, waiting to be heard. It's the quiet nudge that says, "What if you tried?" Or "What if you didn't give up this time?" It's the whisper that says, "You're stronger than you think," even when the rest of your mind is screaming that you're not. The biggest breakthroughs in life come when you stop listening to the voice that says you can't and start listening to the one that says you can. When you decide to trust yourself, even when it feels risky. When you decide to bet on your own potential, even when you don't have all the answers. Because here's the truth: you're never going to feel completely ready. You're never going to have everything perfectly figured out. But that's okay. You don't need to be perfect to take the next step. You just need to be willing. So many people waste their lives waiting for the fear to go away, but the fear isn't going anywhere. It's part of being human. It's part of stepping into the unknown. The difference between the people who grow and the people who stay stuck isn't that the brave ones don't feel fear, it's that they don't let it stop them. They feel it, they acknowledge it, and then they move forward anyway. That's what real courage looks like, and let's be real. This isn't about ignoring your doubts or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing that those doubts are just thoughts, not facts. Just because your mind says you're not ready doesn't mean it's true. Just because it says you're not enough doesn't mean it's reality. Your job isn't to make those thoughts go away, it's to refuse to let them control you. To say, I hear you, but I'm not letting you run the show anymore. This is where real transformation happens. When you stop being a prisoner of your thoughts and start becoming the creator of your life. When you stop letting that inner critic define what's possible for you and start defining it for yourself. When you realize that your potential isn't something you have to earn, it's something you already have, you just have to claim it. Every time you choose to act in spite of your fear, you build a little more confidence. Every time you take a step forward, even when you're shaking, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you ever imagined. And that's how you break the cycle, not by waiting for your doubts to disappear, but by moving forward with them. By showing yourself that you're stronger than your fear every single day. So here's what I want you to remember. You are not your doubts. You are not your fears. You are not your inner critic. You are the person who gets to decide how this story ends. You are the person who gets to choose whether you're going to stay stuck or step up. And you don't have to have it all figured out to take that first step. You just have to be willing to try. The people who build lives they're proud of aren't the ones who never felt afraid. They're the ones who refused to let fear have the final say. They're the ones who said, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. They're the ones who chose to believe in themselves even when it didn't feel easy. And you can do the same. The next time that voice in your head tries to tell you you're not enough, I want you to pause and remember who you really are. I want you to remember that you are stronger than you know, braver than you feel, and more capable than you've ever imagined. And I want you to choose in that moment to keep going, because your dreams, your goals, your vision for your life, they're worth it, and so are you. Let's go. The truth is, the real magic happens when you stop waiting for someone to give you permission and start giving it to yourself. So many people spend their whole lives waiting for someone to tell them they're good enough, waiting for the perfect time to begin, waiting for the fear to disappear. But life doesn't work like that. If you want to create a life you're proud of, you have to stop waiting and start acting. You have to give yourself permission to take that first step, even if it's messy, even if it's scary, even if you're not sure exactly where it will lead. You see, waiting feels safe. It feels like you're protecting yourself from failure or disappointment. But in reality, waiting is just another form of self-sabotage. It's how you convince yourself to stay stuck. Because as long as you're waiting, you don't have to risk anything. You don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have to face the possibility that it might not work out. But you know what's even scarier than failing? Wasting your potential. Spending your whole life wondering what could have been if you just had the courage to try. When you give yourself permission to start, everything changes. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need the willingness to take action, because it's in the doing that you figure things out. It's in the taking of small, consistent steps that you start to build momentum. And momentum is what creates progress. Most people never experience that because they're so busy overthinking, so caught up in their heads that they never actually get started. The truth is, you already know what you need to do. Deep down, you know what lights you up. You know what your heart is calling you toward. But you've been telling yourself that you're not ready, that you're not qualified, that you're not enough. And I'm here to tell you, that's a lie. Readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels one. 100% ready to take a big leap. You become ready by taking the leap. You become capable by doing the work. You don't have to feel fearless to start. You just have to be willing to feel the fear and do it anyway. Giving yourself permission is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying to yourself, I matter, my dreams matter, my vision matters. And when you do that, you shift your entire perspective. You stop living like a victim of your circumstances and start living like the creator of your life. You start to see possibilities where you used to see roadblocks. You start to find solutions where you used to see problems, because when you're no longer waiting for someone else to say it's okay, you start to realize that you are the only one who can decide what's possible for you. And let's be clear, giving yourself permission doesn't mean you'll never feel doubt again. It doesn't mean you'll never face obstacles. It just means you stop letting those things be an excuse. It means you decide that your dreams are worth fighting for, even when it's hard. It means you're willing to show up for yourself day after day, because you know that you deserve to live a life that feels true and fulfilling. So many people think they have to wait for the perfect moment. But the perfect moment doesn't exist. Life is messy and unpredictable. You're never going to have all the stars align in just the right way. If you keep waiting for perfection, you'll be waiting forever. The real magic happens in the messy, imperfect action. It happens when you take a step before you feel ready. It happens when you trust that you'll figure it out along the way, and you will, because you're capable. You're resilient, and you're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Here's the thing. You don't need anyone's approval to start living the life you want. You don't need anyone to say, yes, you're good enough. You just need to decide for yourself. Because the truth is, no one else is living your life. No one else has to wake up with your dreams. No one else has to live with the regret of not trying. This is your life, and you get to decide what you do with it. So I want you to ask yourself, what would I do if I stopped waiting for permission? What would I create? What risks would I take? What dreams would I chase? And then I want you to go do it. Don't wait for someone else to give you the green light. Don't wait for the fear to go away. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Just start. Start messy. Start scared. Start small, but start. Because every step you take is a vote for the kind of life you want to live. Every time you show up for yourself, you're building confidence and momentum. And before you know it, you're not just dreaming about the life you want. You're living it. That's the power of giving yourself permission. That's the freedom that comes when you decide you're done waiting. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not here to play small. You're not here to live someone else's idea of what your life should look like. You're here to be bold. You're here to take risks. You're here to create something extraordinary. And it all starts the moment you stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. Let's go.